Alrighty, I think the stream has started, so I'm going to start talking and get pretty much right to it. Anyone that wants to join along, you can always watch this video a little bit later too, to learn maybe a little bit more about, let's call it my process on the 200 and 200E. Right, so these modules are a collection of what I guess I deem to be the easiest to use for me, and I'll walk around some of the ideas, maybe the reasons why maybe the people who influenced me to use a particular module, let's call it, and people who have helped me build these too, right? Let's think about it, because certain people had to hand build a lot of these, and I was one of them. So Roman helped me a lot, Josh helped me a lot. So Roman and Josh, I can't thank you guys enough in a way for opening my mind to I guess the stream of consciousness of Don Buchla, right? Because that's what, in my mind, a lot of this represents. Now, whether we know or don't know the person that made this stuff or not, I guess I met Don Buchla one time in my life, so I was pretty fortunate to shake his hand and talk to him about his synthesizers. At the time, I was working at 4MS, so I was just so into talking to people about synths every second of my life. I'm still extremely into synthesizers. I'm not in that deep of that life right now. I've taken kind of like a backseat to that, let's call it, right? I've been working on maybe some mental health right now, and some personal health, like exercise and things like that. So, yeah, my journey is somewhere a little different right now. But that being said, I think I continue to use these systems to help my mental health and to help me talk to other friends and people who enjoy music, because that's what this is all about, right? Sharing a love for something and connecting on that kind of level, right? So again, I don't have any patch set up right now. I have a basic setup of the modules, and to let you know what they do, because you got to imagine these are coming out in the TipTop audio form soon too, so I'm sure a lot of people have questions about, what are those modules and what do they do, and maybe how do those modules help, or how would those modules help you, right? So to kind of think about that, I was just making sure the audio is running right over here too. Okay, so yeah, like I said, we got the Buchla running, everything's turned on, and in this series, I'm going to talk about some of the most basic modules, right? So, 218 keyboard, right? So it's this is just the plain Jane, the most simple one. It does not have the sequencer in it. This is the 218R. I'm sure it's like the first version of it too, or I don't think there's like any mods to it. It's been calibrated to 1.2 volts per octave, so when I play on this keyboard, the output voltages are 1.2 volts per octave, so that's these guys. I have a module here, it's like the adapter, and in the adapter I have an output module that's basically quarter to eighth and a couple bananas to quarter. I have a delay module, really cheap one. I have a multiple from Pittsburgh Modular, because I like those people, they make really cool stuff. And from Polyend, I have the Poly, which is the original version. I like this one the most. Very simple. You can plug in like Ableton. You can pick MIDI channels off it. I can plug MIDI right into it. This is volt per octave. All right, so this module is basically DOA, or dual algorithmic, or DAO, which is dual algorithmic oscillator, which is 2 braids. I can calibrate this to volt per octave or 1.2 volts per octave very easily. And this allows me to play the field with this module and this keyboard into this any way that I want. So this can be volt per octave, while these are 1.2 volts per octave, right? Because these are 4 Buchla oscillators, but they're, you know, well, 25S. They're clones. Roman designed. I built both of these ones. Jeremy helped me order some parts for him. I think he helped me put down one of the boards, and then I finished building them just because I think I got it. They're very tough. It's not an easy build. Your brain gets a little obsessive when you want to finish it, and you just want to get it done because it's really hard, and there's a lot of spots that you can make a mistake. Right now, I made one mistake because the center detent on this one on the high order is incorrect. Like, I put the center detent in the wrong place, and this was the one spot I hurried in to try to get this oscillator finished. So you will make that mistake, and I did not change that because it doesn't matter to me. It's a little thing, right? And so out of this whole system, I think there's one jack in my sequencer that doesn't work right here because of the original schematic, and I didn't switch the pole on this, so I can fix this down the road, right? It's just I gotta switch a trace. Everything else in this system functions 100%, right? So I know that because I use the system inside now. And I'm not even saying that this is a dysfunction. This is just like the center detent on the CV input attenuator is just doesn't have a center. You gotta find it. And then the high order has a center, which I actually like because it's like the middle of all the harmonics. I don't know, whatever. To each their own. So now when you think about it, I have they're like 261s, but they're also like 259s, where there's 2 oscillators, a primary and a modulation, and they can functionally run into each other while you turn the modulation index. So that makes this one run into this one, right? So if we're going to take an example, I'm going to be like final output, I'm going to go low pass gate, I'm going to say low pass gate, which is 292, to the 207, now that's a mixer, and then from the 207 mixer left output to the to the delay, and that's the output as well. So right now you should start hearing some audio from the system. I'm going to turn down my voice a little bit. I'm sorry I'm like yelling. I get excited and I talk loud. That is the nature of me. It's a nature of when I teach, I get excited. I'm sure that's a nature when I speak to people. I'm excited. That's a very big part of who I am. So if I get a little bit excited, that's what's going on. In the end here, we are listening to this oscillator, right? And inside this oscillator, I'm going to imagine that it's very steady right now. There's no modulation. We have a steady tone, right?
Oh, hey, throw your glasses on the floor.
And then I'm going to take a keyboard now, and I'm going to modulate the pitch of the oscillator input. So keyboard voltage output, pitch, oscillator input. So right now, that should be the full CV range, and so now you can use the low pass gate as a filter too, because it's actually pulling harmonics away with volume at the same time. That's the nature of the gate. So playing the keyboard, right? Now we can choose to modulate it, what I consider old school. I can take like an LFO, which is an envelope generator simply looping in this case, and I can modulate something right. In this case, it's going to be the timbre, right? So timbre modulation, speed is envelope or LFO, right? Or we can do that same process from the modulation oscillator, right? So I can just say so triangle, and it would be the same if we took a cable from, I know it's silly, this is like a demented kind of organ. Just think of like FM synthesis. We're basically running oscillators at oscillator rate. But there we're doing it into timbre. So if we did FM, that would be pitch, right? So let's go pitch. And so pure FM, because we're doing oscillator to oscillator, right? Now the cool thing is on a switch I can select triangle, square, or saw. I like square the most. So you can do these fun things. Now this is just like literally one cable to a gate, one cable to a mixer out. No, I mean the keyboard modulation's there, but there's no other cable. I just use the index to do it, right? Alright. And so this is why I like delay on it all the time, because then you don't get so bored with it. But let's talk about that, where we just take the sequencer, the 245. Now, 245, truth be told, you have to have a shunting, whatever these are called, to connect the oscillator in the sequencer to the actual sequencer itself. And then you flick a switch, it turns the oscillator on, and then I have like a speed knob here. That's the speed of this oscillator. And the pulse period is the pulse width of what's coming out of the square that I'm feeding right into the sequencer next to it, right? So in the module itself, you have to make this patch. And then I'm going to take the physical sequence now. Right, you can make like a neat little short sequence, right? And then from that oscillator, right, I'm going to take another output. Now this is going to be I believe it's a saw output. And I'm going to feed that into an envelope. So that's the same timing of the sequencer, right? And then I'm going to take that timing and I'm going to adjust the low pass gate next to it, right? Now it's dampened, and there it's open. And I'm going to turn the mic off for a second. Okay, so again, in this patch, I'm just going to talk real quick about, in the workflow, what I did was I used an oscillator, and then I ran that oscillator into a low-pass gate. I ran the low-pass gate into a mixer, and then I ran the mixer into the delay and output, right? So very easy patch. Oscillator, low pass gate, mixer, delay, out. So simple chain. And then the modulation in the patch. What's moving the patch is basically the sequencer, which there's an oscillator running the sequencer, and that goes to a 281, which is the envelope generator. That's what's given me the ability to pluck the sound in a way, because it lets me be very sharp on the nature of the gate and the way that it approaches closing the amplitude, and the Vactrals inside of it too give it this very nice sound. Now, when I'm not FMing the oscillator with the modulation oscillator to the primary, there's no cable there. You just turn the index and it actually modulates the oscillator. It's very simple. But the range of sound we get in that range of modulation becomes phenomenal. I mean, this is why we like these systems. That's why these are so amazing, right? So I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to explain it. I am changing the decay of the sound, and I'm also going to change the amount of amplitude modulation and frequency modulation at the same time, because now I've combined them. I'm using a square wave to do this, and as I change the amount of the modulation and the speed of the modulation, watch the range of the sound. Watch how much tonal range we get over the course of the next, let's say, 4 minutes. So I'm going to turn off the mic. I'm going to turn on the Buchla. So I just kind of wanted to give maybe like an approach to this. Was me making a lot more music in a way with it, right? So I went from a place of not having a rhythm to this place of having this really neat rhythm, right? And I use the final channel in my mixer, which I'm using in mono because it's a stereo mixer. I used the VCA in my last mixer with pressure to pan from hard right to left, so I didn't have a VCA left. So this is 5 kind of VCAs in a way. I don't know how to explain it. I just use the mixer sometimes as a VCA to like shift. So the cool thing with the 207 is if you use it in mono, you can use the right channel that's CV panable to left as a like auxiliary VCA in a pinch. And I use the pressure on the keyboard to quiet. And the more I press on the keyboard, I hear the sound in a greater intensity. I learned this from Josh because he used to use pressure out a lot into the 292, which is the low pass gate. You can use the amount of his finger to create the volume of the sound, which I was really like intrigued, and I was really like, I was learning a lot from him. So that was a technique that I thought was important to take away, is that in the Buchla it's nice because a gate or something with a Vactrol is pretty smooth sounding. It doesn't have this like on-off click in a way. It's almost like it has a rounded on and off, and because it's pressure based, the pressure comes in, the pressure goes out, you know, it helps the sound breathe. I personally find that to be really, really interesting and fun. And so I use that to my advantage in some of these patches, right? So I think as an overview of what kind of took place, I used 4 oscillators, I used 1 piece of white noise, I used 2 bandpass filters. The final sound also has, that's a balanced modulator, which in turn is, I don't know if it's a frequency shifter is what it is. I'm taking a frequency and superimposing a second frequency with it. When you slow it down, it sounds kind of like a phaser, and when you speed it up, it gets like really interesting. So this is where I think the other sound in the Buchla, the 285, the frequency shifter. I think that's like a real primary sound of the Buchla. On top of it, the 291s, like the dual bandpass filters, I love it. I use it in every patch. And if I had room for the 294 in here, I'd love it. I found that 4 rows in front of me was too much. This case, and the reason I hacked the top row off of it and had Jason help me was because I personally could not deal with the 4th row. It was too much for my brain. And even as I've developed as a synth player, like how much I know and like how much I feel I'm smart with synths, I'm not saying that I'm like scared to have a 4th row. It's really funny to say that, but it didn't make me make better music. It like took away from like my focus. And when I used 3 rows, I was like super focused, where when I started using the 4th row, I would like forget something would be running, or I don't know, it was like just a whole other game in my head. And I found that when I took the sequencer and the keyboard and put them in the same case and started kind of like letting the little simple sequences make a rhythm and play over top of it and have fun, it became a very nice organic process, because I used the random generator, the 266E, the source of uncertainty. I use that to modulate the filters and sometimes to modulate the sequencer to fool you into thinking I have more than 4 steps or 5 steps, and that becomes a very, very fun part of the source of uncertainty. You use this as longer sequences and longer pattern adjusters, and you use the 257 to mix the voltage with either the sequencer or the keyboard so that it doesn't sound like you're playing the same thing all the time. That takes time to develop that foresight in a patch, because the decay on a sound might be random, the timbre knob on something might be random, the movement of the filter for the hi-hat or shushy sound is moving randomly. this keeps the patch from getting boring to the human ear. For me, I don't know about everybody else. Maybe people are just like really bored with this patch. I don't know. But that's how I do it when I'm making music, is I think of it in this like 4 or 5 sounds. I don't think of a million sounds at once. I'm a pretty simple person, and that makes this work, I think. So, all right. Well, I will post this later on my other channel, just because I think this is a very good educational springboard for the 200 and 200E. I hope the explanation of some of the modules helped you understand the way I use it and some of the people that influenced me to use it. I didn't really cover every single form of whatever, but you heard a lot of amplitude modulation and pitch modulation. So you didn't, and frequency modulation. I didn't really modulate the timbre much in these patches because I wanted the AM and FM to stand out. I also didn't use the digital oscillator at all, just because I wanted an analog thing the whole time. If anyone wanted to hear just like the analog sound of Buchla, not just some extra digital. Now these sound phenomenal. When I start using them with the gates, the balance modulator, the 291, it's phenomenal. So that is by no means, that's why I have it in here, because I use it more than anything else. But I really like it because I can use it with its own envelopes and its own stuff right off of Ableton, and then run this case with a timer from Ableton, and that's when it gets really interesting. So that's where this comes in. And we can go down that road later. I think I'm going to do some more talks about the Buchla this year and just, you know, let people hear it and get an idea what's going on. But outside of that, the creative process with it too, right? Because there's a lot of new stuff coming out from TipTop, and people might wonder before they buy those modules, well, which ones do I need? What do people in the Buchla world really do? I guess I've used these systems since 2016. I have a smaller system too I mess with, so we could potentially play with some of those, because it has the 259 and the 294 in it. And I love those modules. They're like some of my favorites. So I have a couple other favorites I use a lot. But, you know, this was just like a quick introduction to the world of 18U, 4U that I use. Or 18 unit 4U modular, you know, Buchla. That's kind of what's going down here. So, all right, well, everyone enjoy the day. It's 10 o'clock here, so I have work today, and I'm going to get ready. So, enjoy.